Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of D2C Chronicles. Today we have with us Komal, who is working as a marketing person at ITC. Komal, an FMS graduate from the batch of 2020, bagged an exceptional offer from ITC, a well known organization in the FMCG sector. What's even more amazing is that she does not only possess extraordinary skill sets, but also knows how to make the most of them. Let's hear it from her what the well known FMCG industry is all about and what it takes to make a place for yourself in the industry. Hi, Komal. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you're doing well. Before we dive into critical questions of this session, I would like you to give us a perspective of what the FMCG industry is all about. And if you were to describe the FMCG industry in one statement, what would it be?
Hi, Alina. Hi, everyone. When we talk about the FMCG industry, and if I had to explain it in one statement, it would be ruthless yet rewarding. So, as we know, that especially because now the funding that is required to enter into the FMCG industry as a small player is very less, and people are more informed, people are more enthusiastic about starting something of their own. The industry is becoming more and more competitive. So even though the pie is increasing, the number of players in the pie are also increasing. And that is why the industry is as competitive as it has ever been.
I actually agree with you on this. And I think the entire COVID scenario and the pandemic that has been lurking around for a very long time now has changed the industry at a very large scale. And I think this is why even smaller players are being affected as much as the large players are.
Yeah, in the current context, the requirement for any company, whether it's big or small, is to be as agile as possible, not just in terms of the product that you're producing, but also in terms of how you're ensuring that the product reaches the consumer at the right time. And amid all the noise and all the anxiety that is going on, how do you communicate to the consumer? Because the mind space that the consumer has at this point is very less. People are not as relaxed as they were. Some people do want to indulge in luxury products, some people do not want to. The market does not hold a trend like it had before the pandemic, right? People have very different reactions. And getting down to those things and understanding that, okay, what do we do to tackle these problems? What do we do to tackle these minute changes that are there from one cohort to the other cohort? And there are so many different cohorts that have popped up, is what will drive the industry in the future, according to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, let us take a step back and understand how different the FMCG industry is in terms of the roles offered and the structure of the organization.
Okay, so unlike popular belief that is there that FMCG companies just hire for sales and marketing, that's half of the truth. The other aspect of it is operations, because every company needs people to manage their supply chain, right? To manage the production. So that is there, and I think ITC also hires people from NITI and similar colleges for that purpose. Then there are people for HR services, for which mainly they hire people from XLRI. Uh, or then there are other aspects of it, like since we are entering a phase where a lot of services are being handled by IT, and we are also enabling the field force that is available with IT equipment, and we need data analytics for that, right? To understand that who purchases what, which salesman should be selling what to make their job easier and to push sales more. So for that, we have an IT team too, for which the hiring is done from B schools itself. So the roles are not just restricted to sales and marketing. However, for a college like from I come from FMS, which is known as a marketing campus. So for us, sales and marketing is definitely the more lucrative of those roles. This might change from campus to campus. So also apart from the widely known brand team and the sales team, there are other roles that a person who is focused towards marketing or sales can work in. So there's category development roles and there are channel development roles. Category development roles are basically focused around developing one particular umbrella brand or one particular category. For example, someone might be working on atta as a category, and they might be working to understand that what can we actually do to pull more people into purchasing packaged atta, and for that matter, Ashirwad specifically. Then there's channel development roles. So there are different channels through which sales happens. Like there is general trade, there are kirana stores that there's modern trade, then there are grocery shops, then other than that, there are e-com platforms that are popping up. There are other B2B platforms, right? So people work on specifically on those channels to understand that how do you make these channels give more throughput than they're actually giving at this current point of time. So those are also roles which are very interesting, which require a very diverse set in terms of understanding data and also in understanding the market, other than the very coveted brand team and the sales role that is there.
I think that's a very detailed description of the roles that are offered by the FMCG industry and also at ITC. I think this is going to give our fellow B schoolers a great idea and a great insight into what it is going to be like once you graduate from your B school.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. That helps them in understanding that they can work on a diverse portfolio, and that is how they should be structuring their mind or trying to gain information and knowledge right now when they're in colleges, by reading news, by understanding that what is actually going on in the market, and where are the areas where India as a country is developing, and what are the places to watch out for when they start working.
Definitely, I think that's very important. We need to have a good idea of what's happening around us to actually step into one of these roles.
That's right. That's right.
Now, when we talk of roles specifically, Komal, what is your role in particular at ITC?
Okay, so right now I am a management trainee at ITC. We are called assistants under training, which basically means that once I am done with my training, once my probation period gets completed, I'll be an assistant. So again, I might be placed in sales, I might be placed in the brand team, or I might be placed in the category development or the channel development team that I was telling you. So this depends upon the skill set that I have, the competency that I have, and the competency that the organization thinks that I would fit into in these roles. So right now, as a trainee, my role is to understand everything in the market, which starts from a salesman job to a team leader's job to what an area executive does, what an area manager does, like from the bottom of the chain to the role that I'm supposed to be performing once I join as an assistant here. So the past 2 months, I have been spending time on the field to understand that how a fellow salesman actually service the field. So that once I become an assistant, I would have more understanding of what are the things that we can change, or what are the things that we can actually do to make his job easier. What are the things that we can do so that we have a leverage on the competition, or even what are the things that we can do to expand the market itself. For example, right now I am working in Patna. So Patna does not, obviously it's not a metro city. It falls under the category of tier two, tier three cities. So the market is not as evolved as the market of a metro city would be, right? There are a lot of gaps in the market. Since I stayed in Delhi the past 2 years and before that in Jaipur for the past 4 years, I can draw a comparison of how the consumption pattern is very different. But along with that, how are the selling pattern different? What are the shopkeepers actually not doing because they don't think it is required? So I don't think I would have been able to understand that in depth until unless I was working on the field right now. So that is what my role is right now and what I'm doing right now.
Now, Komal, when you talk of implementation and how different theory is from practical experiences, what myths have you busted when you stepped into the role of marketeering or that of a management trainee at ITC? Did you uncover yet another P?
Yeah, so there are two major myths. The first one is not everyone is your consumer. So when we are studying in college, and when you're even preparing for corporate competitions, we have this general mindset that our product should be available everywhere. We should focus a lot on visibility. We should focus a lot on availability. Those things still hold, but now any company has very limited resources in terms of both manpower and money, right? And you want one salesman to do a lot of activities. So there we have to take a call that if a product is new, or if even it is in the market for 6 to 7 months, where exactly do we place it? We cannot place it everywhere. You have to take those calls, and you will only be able to take those calls when you're able to understand that not everyone is going to buy a product. There is a specific segment, there is a specific market where this product is going to sell, You can even narrow it down to a specific channel where this product is going to sell, and you have to ensure the availability and visibility more there than anywhere else. That is the first myth. The second myth, I couldn't wrap my head around for a very long time, which is that how do you actually advertise a product without advertising it? So I was of the opinion that advertising is very important aspect of marketing, and it definitely is. But as you would know, that ITC has a cigarette wing, which forms a major revenue stream for the company, right? And you cannot advertise cigarettes in India. ITC goes ahead and says that we will not even do surrogate advertising, but we have a lot of launches. For example, this month itself, we are launching 2 new cigarettes in Patna. So how do you do that? How do you actually advertise without advertising it? How do you tell the consumer about a product without showing advertisements of that on TV, on print media, on radio, or anywhere else? So that is one thing that I found the most interesting. It blew my mind because I did not understand how this is actually happening. How do you launch 2 3 products in a month and the consumer actually knows about it and the shopkeeper actually purchases it and keeps it in their shop? So that was mind boggling.
I can only imagine how thrilling and how exciting it would have been for you the moment you would have realized that, okay, we are going to do something like this, and I've never even heard of something that goes in this manner and that works in this fashion.
Yeah, that's true. And especially working with a team that has been doing this since a very long time.
Absolutely. And I think the difference of what should be done and what is actually being done is what the industry is all about and what you learn once you step into the industry.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Coming to the second part of the question around another P that I discovered. So, people is one of the P's that is, all of us know about, but I saw the real force of it once I entered into the industry. So, specifically to smaller shops, smaller outlets, or specifically to cigarettes, what your salesman has a relation with the shopkeeper, that comes into a major play. The salesman has the power to actually place a product in the shop, even if the shopkeeper does not want to, just because he knows the person from a very long time, or just because he has a very good relation with him. That is something which is very interesting, because even though we read a lot about trade practices and we understand trade, how do trade conflicts happen by reading, once we see it in practice, because it does not match theory, it does not match how the ideal case should be, it is very far from what ideally it should, what should be happening. You'll see instances of where a very high selling product is also not available in a store, and something which is low selling is available, and the shopkeeper is able to sell it because he also has a certain relationship with the people who live around him, and they would rather purchase from his shop than purchase from any other shop. So these are few things that we see in the market. The people aspect of it is very very powerful, which I did not know about to this depth before. Also the processes part of it, wherein using data analytics and using the data that is collected on field, there is so much that can be done more. For example, we can understand that if a market has a certain potential and it is selling X category of product before, how do we drive Y category of product by using that? So I think most people must have read about the Pampers and beer selling example of Walmart. Very interestingly, that is very much applicable in the rural markets of Bihar as well. And that is something I would not have believed if someone would have told me in a B school, but that does happen. You can sell chocolates clubbed along with, say, we will soaps, and that is something which was unimaginable before that. How does this even happen? But it does happen, and you'll be able to understand it more once you work with these people.
Relationship building, I think, plays a very crucial role when it comes to selling products in the market. Because if you know that you have very good terms with one particular person, and if you know that you have good terms with your customers, a salesman, the job of a salesman gets very easy in that perspective.
Yeah, and as customers, we usually are very cognizant of the advertisements that we watch or the communication that we receive from the company from that end. And we more than often ignore, or it falls on the blind spot, that what actually happens when you enter a store. How does a modern trade outlet influence your choices? We are not very cognizant of the fact that, okay, I'm actually impulse buying this entire product which costs 150 rupees just because it's placed here, and it is placed there because your salesman has very good relations with the modern trade outlet person. So even if you're not paying them extra, which you usually do, he might place it just because of the relationship factor that plays in there. So
Exactly.
that is very mind blowing.
Now let us move on to a more critical question now. I'm sure getting placed at reputed organizations like ITC wouldn't have been a child's play. What all did it take for you in terms of interview preparation to get placed at ITC?
Okay, so in my opinion, every individual is looking for the perfect fit for themselves in terms of the role in the company, and the company is doing the same. So, more than understanding the industry, it is very important to understand the company that you're preparing for, to understand how does this particular company take decisions, what is its portfolio, what are its strength, what are the kind of people they are looking for, because all these things are connected. And if you've got this in place, that what in particular is this company looking for example, I knew that ITC is looking for people who want to innovate, who have an inner drive, because you have to work in sales, you have to work in brands, to work in a mix of both those things, especially to work in sales in the training period. You need a lot of inner drive where you just don't give up, even if you don't understand, or even if the it gets tough. Like, okay, fine, I will just stay aligned and I will still get it done. So that is what they required, and along with that, they required someone who can find solutions for problems that have been existing since ages, or you can at least try to find solutions to come up with multiple instances, multiple stakeholders that will be impacted by that, and how do we choose between them? How do you do that analysis between what is the cost and what is the benefit? It is not a company that burns cash. It is a company that is very shrewd about where to invest money and where not to invest money. So having that understanding, I was able to place myself in a position where I was like, okay, these are the few things that they want. I fit into 3 or 4 of their buckets, and maybe not in 1 or 2 of their buckets. So how do I play to my strengths? And what do I do to make sure that my weaknesses do not get me rejected, and my weaknesses, not just in the interview, but also after I enter into the organization, how do I not let the my weaknesses impact my work there? So knowing the company in itself is a very important thing to do. Now, when it comes down to knowing the industry, um, FMCG is not a very slow moving industry. It's a fast paced industry. It has a lot of pressure associated with it, which anyone who's working in the FMCG industry would tell you. But at the same time, the learning that you get from it is enormous, because you learn as much as you want to learn. You can learn about sales, you can learn about brands, but you can go beyond that and you can understand who is purchasing what, that learning never ends, because it's an ever evolving and evergreen industry. It's not going to die. It hasn't died in these many years, and it's not going to die. So understanding those industry patterns, industry trends, seeing that what have people been purchasing since the past 20 years, how are those patterns changing, what are the new channels that are coming up, basically having a very strong hold on how the FMCG industry is evolving overall. That is one thing that I paid a lot of attention to. Then moving on, I try to understand that basis the competition, what are the key leverages that ITC as a company has, and what are the places where we can, in the category that we exist, still develop and innovate. So doing this does not mean that they would ask you this directly in the interview, but doing this ensures that in any of the questions that you're asked in the interview, you can think on those parallels and you can come up with answers that would resonate with the interviewer.
I think that is some very critical insight into what one must do when going in for an interview in the FMCG sector, especially for ITC as an organization. And I think the points that you have mentioned about an insight, about having insights about the industry, especially the FMCG industry, how it has evolved over the years, I think that is very, very crucial before you step into the interview.
Yeah, that's true. So I think most of the people who would have sat for summers for FMCG companies would know that they are given case studies basis launching a new product or marketing a new product. Now you would not know what to launch if you're not very well aware of what is actually happening in the industry, and that is a little preposterous maybe in the summers. But by the time you reach the finals interview, you have a lot of marketing courses, a lot of sales courses, so you're supposed to understand those things more, and you're supposed to read news more to understand that what is it that Nestle is doing, what is it that HUL is doing, what is it that a new player like Wow is doing. The more you understand these things, the more you would be able to understand where is the industry heading towards. And when you say that, okay, if I have to launch a product, this is something that I would launch, you will be able to give them more information about this is what your competition had launched, and this is the route that they had taken. I think this is the target consumer that you are not touching as an organization. And once, if you can show that to someone in a 40 minutes interview or 50 minutes interview, that I bring something to the plate.
Absolutely. But before the interview, there is the round of GD. That is the group discussion. Do you remember or do you recall any questions from the GD round that you would have faced in your FMCG interviews?
I was one of the candidates who never really sat for any of the placements. So I did not sit for my summer placements because I got placed beforehand. And as well as for ITC, we participated in Interrobang and we were the campus winners. So we had PPIs and we got placed way before the placements happened. So
Okay.
even though I don't have any personal experience regarding the GD, what I can tell you from the experiences that my friends have is that it can range from, depending upon the kind of role that they are looking for or the kind of person they are looking for. It can range from giving you caselets regarding launches. It can range from survival caselets that they usually give, or it might even be something that RV gives, which is more of a data focused case prep that you are required to do for that purpose. ITC as a company didn't really used to recruit for final placements until lately. I think last year they had recruited from some campuses, but before that they had not really recruited for finals. So the information regarding that you would be able to get is also very limited. But one thing that they really look for is structured thought process. So if you can think in a very structured approach, and if you're very clear in your thought process, you cannot say A in the first part of the GD or the interview and then deviate to C or D within 2-3 minutes when you are put into a lot of pressure. So consistency is the other thing.